All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So today we are going to be looking at the very beginning of our Constitution. Now, if you watched the last video, which you guys should have done your own, we were talking about the Articles of Confederation and basically how that really sucked, how that really was just horrible, and that the delegates basically getting together trying to figure out what can we do to make things better. Okay, so again, we did not start off with our constitution the way we had it. We had the Articles of Confederation and we learned our lesson from that. Okay, so again, you should have the Google Classroom, the form as half your screen, this YouTube video the other half. That will make things go by a lot faster and easier for yourself. Okay, um, so again, remember, uh, don't pause the video, don't, just go to, go zipping through, because the lecture is the key thing. And that's how mainly you learn from seeing, because you have to remember, just because you write down a couple things doesn't mean you're going to remember it. You have to listen to the whole thing, and especially with history, how things go in order, how did they connect? Because if you don't get that, then you're going to be really lost in what was the consequences of such and such. You're going to be just, it's going to be in the blue for you because again, you were not paying attention, you were not seeing how things connect. And that's what I'm doing with these lectures, showing you how things connect. Okay. So, the objective today is to analyze the system of checks and balances. That's one of the key things in our Constitution. Examine the need for 2/3 majority over a simple majority. Okay, so a simple majority is simply half plus one. That makes it a simple majority because all it took is that one to step over, and that makes now this side the majority and this side the minority. Okay. Create an argument on the importance of leaving room for interpretation and adding to the Constitution. Okay. So let's go ahead, go to the warm-up picture. As you can see here, I do believe the question asks you, uh, what are two things that you see? Okay, so be sure you mention that. And the second question, what do you think this artist is trying to say? Um, Now, if you don't really get it, look at the little caption on the bottom, and that should give you a hint, you know, into what this artist is trying to say. Okay, so go ahead, write your response, press pause to finish up because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, now look at, here's the thing. The delegates, when they got together for the Constitutional Convention, they basically agreed on several things. One of them is that the power of the government should come from the people. The people have the popular sovereignty. Okay, we have control. Without our say so, the government can't do anything. Okay, they can't force us to do anything if we, the people, unite and say no. Okay, now a small group or half or whatever, it's not going to work. It takes more than half of the people to stand up and say, no, we are not with this. And we'll be getting to that later on because that's what this basically the whole emphasis of this lesson's about. How you, the people, you guys are going to be 18 and older pretty soon. You guys are going to run this country. It's going to be in your hands. So when you vote and you do things, um, in the sense you are deciding how this country is going to go, which way it's going to go. Okay. And like I said in the last video too, if you don't vote, you're basically giving power to the other people. And are they going to care what you think or what you're going through? Chances are no. Okay, so it's always important to put your word out there. Okay. So the other thing they agreed on was, you know what, our country is going to be really big. And at that time, it had the 13 colonies, and they're like, you know what, we're too spread out. So a direct democracy is out of the question. Direct democracy is basically when you, the person, an individual, gets to vote on an issue. So let's say President Trump says, I want to build the wall, I need money. And we would get the proposal. Us, the people who are 18, over 18, who are registered to vote, we would get the proposal. We'd have to read through it and say, yes, we agree with it, or no, we don't agree with it. So we would have to go vote. You know, that's direct democracy, comes directly from the person. What we have is a representative system. So we elect someone to represent us in the Senate, in the House of Representatives. Okay? Those people represent us where we are, where we're living. So when they go vote on something like funding the wall, they their job is to basically represent us, what we feel, as a whole, and then vote that way. Okay. The other thing that the delegates agreed on was that we should not have one central power, not like one government that controls everything. They're like, we need to break this thing down. So yeah, we have the federal level, which is the top, which is the president, the Senate, the House of Representatives, the court system, and then comes the state level. So you got your mayor, you got your state legislature, you got the state Supreme Court, and then you go down one more, and that's the local level. So it would be like the mayor of Fresno, the councilman and councilwoman of Fresno, and then the local, court systems. Okay, that's what they're saying. Instead of just one big giant government that controls it all, they have different levels. Because you have to remember, let's say um, the street like First and Shields, let's say that area is just destroyed, completely destroyed. In a central government, which again, there's only one form of government, the top, they could care less about a street in Fresno. That's nothing to them. But on the local level, the lower level, no one who they know where exactly that street is, that part. They're gonna be like, oh, that's a busy place. A lot of people go there, a lot of traffic. We need to fix that. So that's why it's important to have that layers of government, because the local ones, they keep their ear to the ground. They know what's going on in their area, whereas the top level focuses on overall and international things going on in other countries that might affect us. Okay. Power is just distributed amongst three branches: legislative, executive, judicial. Okay. But the thing is, they are separated, but they are also connected. Okay. So, like Congress, the House and the Senate, they basically create and pass laws. Okay. So they would pass the laws, it would go to the president, which is in the executive. The president then either signs it or vetoes it. Okay. So now if they sign it, then their job is to enforce that law, to make sure that it is being followed. Okay. The judicial, the court system, makes sure that that law doesn't step on the rights of citizens. Okay. Now the thing is, um, they don't read it and go, "Oh, it's gonna hurt the citizen doing this specific thing." Usually, what happens is the law is put into place, and then something happens where someone says that law is violating my right, and then it goes to the court system. The local level keeps going up, and then the state level, and they haven't figured it out yet, then it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. But once it goes to the Supreme Court, the judicial branch, that's it. Once they made their ruling, that's it. You can't go any higher saying, I don't like what they said. Tough luck. That's the law of the land. All right, so on your Google form, I asked you to write down, I believe it's at least three presidents that you do not know. So looking at this picture, write down at least three. If you put more, awesome. That's going to let me know when we go through the U.S. history to talk more a little bit about this person, a little interesting fact, things like that. Um, so like if you don't know who Millard Fillmore is, be sure you put that name. Okay. Um, so don't be ashamed if you have like a lot of names, because a lot of students don't know a lot of these presidents. Okay. There are people who are my age who probably you look give them this list and they'll probably look like we had a President Garfield, or Buchanan. Yeah. Okay. So make your list. Okay. Um, Pause the video so you can write it all down. But we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So now checks and balances. This is a way for um, basically the framers, the founding fathers knew. You know what? The people who have power, they're going to be corrupt, no matter what. So we got to make sure that these guys keep each other in check. And let's say two branches um are like, hey, let's get together and let's try to get each other more power. You still got that third branch who can come in and say no and can stop them. Okay. So a great example is that Congress makes and creates laws, like I said earlier. Now what happens is, um, let's say the law passes Congress, both houses, and it goes to the president. The president, for whatever reason, doesn't like it, and he says, "I veto it." That's basically saying, "I don't agree with it," and he sends it back. That doesn't mean the law is dead, the bill is dead. No. Okay. There are ways to go around it. Okay. Again, the president is not a king. Just because he says no doesn't mean that's it. Okay. What Congress would have to do is basically get 2/3 of the votes saying, yes, we want this law. Okay, 2/3 of the senators, 2/3 of the House of Representatives at least. And if they do get it, then it becomes law. The president then has no say so. The president can't be like, well, I veto it again. No, you have only one veto, and that's it. He can use it for other bills, but on that particular bill, they cannot veto it. If it's kept the same way, same wording and everything, the president cannot veto it again. Okay. And that's the thing. Some students have asked me in the past, has that ever happened, that the Congress, stepped over the president that way? Yeah. Yeah. It's happened several times. The president said, no, I don't like this for whatever reason. And Congress came back at them with 2/3 from both branches, from both houses. And boom, became law. And the president was powerless to do anything to stop it. Okay. Um, Another thing too that Congress has power to do is impeach. They can impeach not only the president but the judges in the Supreme Court and federal judges, as well as their own senators, own members of the House of Representatives. They can basically impeach those guys too. Okay. Now the thing is, uh, if someone's impeached, right? That means that the House of Representatives filed charges. That doesn't mean that they got kicked out. Okay, so when you hear, oh, so and so was impeached, that doesn't mean that they're automatically kicked out. It then goes to the Senate. And if the Senate says, yeah, we agree, they did wrong for whatever reason, whatever the charges are, then they're kicked out. Okay, no president has ever been completely charged, um, impeached and kicked out. No president has ever been that. There's been some judges who have been kicked out, federal judges and some of that. There's been members of the House of Representatives, senators who have been impeached because of for whatever reason, treason, things like that. So that's how they keep each other in check. Okay, so again, I try to emphasize it, say it again and again and again. The president is not some type of king. He is not all powerful. Okay. All right, so now we come to the question on your uh, Google form. Who should have the power to kick out the president? Should it be the Senate or should it be the people? Now, before you really answer, think this. Where do a lot of people get their information from? And the information that they do get, is it the truth? You know? And do people vote on the truth or is it by political parties? Same thing with the Senate. Do they vote by what's the truth or by political parties? So, and I know it's kind of like pick your poison, but pick which one do you think should, you know, have the power to kick out a president or a judge or whatever. Okay. Should that power belong to, the Senate or the people? So, pause the video. You need to write out your section. Okay. Um, and we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. So here's the thing. The framers of the Constitution in the summer of 1787, they knew, like all smart people, they knew two things. One, that they didn't know everything. Two, that they couldn't tell the future. You have to remember at this time, um, they didn't know what a telephone was. They didn't know what a car was. The guns they had was musket, and the average man shot a bullet in like 20 seconds. And nowadays, with the weapons now in 20 seconds, I mean, you can get a lot of bullets out of a gun in 20 seconds. Um, and also, you have to think, women, it was unfathomable for these guys to imagine that women had the right to vote in the future. It was like, what? They would have just like their jaws would have hit the ground. Because some women, it was legal for them to own property for crying out loud. You know, so but the thing is, they knew times might change, things might happen. So instead of making our Constitution like stone, let's make it like clay. So they left room for interpretation, for words not to be like, this is exactly how it's going to be, this is exactly how it's going to go. They kind of made it vague. Okay. And also they left room for it so that the people could add laws to it. Okay. But the thing is, they also knew we can't let it go just, you can write in a law anytime you want. Because then, let's say a political party or a group gets too big, they might trample on the rights of the minorities. And the thing is, like I've said it before, people to want to be right. They want to be with a group who's right, group that's going to win, things like that. So a lot of times they won't join another political party. They'll either join like the Republicans or Democrats. Even though their ideals are not completely Republican, not completely Democrat. It's more like one of the third parties, the little parties, but they won't join them because they feel like, oh, these guys aren't going to win. My vote will be lost. So I'll join this bigger group. Okay. It's human nature. Okay. So to make sure that just any law was not passed, they had a two-part system where first was the proposal, in which the law had to be stated, what was in it, what rights, what was going to happen. And the other thing was ratification. So it had to be agreed on, okay, by basically the people. Okay. Now, there are some amendments you guys may or may not know. And I've said for years, if you know some amendments based off of movies, TV shows, things like that, that's awesome. I'm all for it. Okay. The more you know correct information, the better you are. And if it comes from movies and TV shows, like I said, I'm all for it. So, on this part, in your uh, Google form, you're going to write down the amendments that you know without looking up. Like right now, you're not even trying to open a tab on, to look up what Amendment 10 is, things like that. Just write down the amendments that you know already. Okay, even if you're like kind of like I know this amendment, but I'm not completely sure. You're like 50-50. I leave it up to you whether you want to put it or not. But if you're like, oh, I know this one, I know it, it's at the tip of my tongue. I can remember like one or two of the rights in there. Then put it. If you know at least one or two of the rights in like the first or the fourth or fifth, put it in there. All right. Now, if you know none of them, that's fine. Okay. There's no shame in that. Okay. Because that's why you're taking these classes to learn. Okay. Um, it's if you get to my age and you don't know any amendment or any rights, that's when it can be kind of bad. You should know at least some of your rights. All right. Um, so be sure you put that down. Okay. And like I said, if you have me in government class, we are going to dissect almost all of these amendments so you know exactly what they mean. So go ahead, write that out, pause the video because we're moving on in three, two, one. Now, here's the thing. If amendment is proposed, it needs to reach two-thirds majority um, of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Okay, but the thing is, let's say there's an amendment saying if Congress can't agree on stuff, and then the president and Congress doesn't get paid. Obviously, the senators and House of Representative members are going to be against it. They're like, no, 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 that's not right. No, 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 no. Okay, the thing is, in the Constitution, we have the right, us, the people, to basically make that a law. Now, how is that going to happen? Two-thirds of the states would have to basically um, vote on it, say, yes, we want that. Okay. Um, so in our, like right now, we have 50 states. That would be 33 states that would have to say, yes, we want this law. Now, in order for a state to basically say, um, yeah, we're voting for that, three-quarters of the state has to vote for it. So let's say California, um, three-quarters of the state says, yes, we agree to this law. We want it. Then that state, California, becomes one state that says yes. And then they're going to need 32 more. So, like Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Ohio, Illinois, they would need 33 of them. And if they get 33, then that becomes law. Now, I've had students in the past ask me, has this ever happened? No, it hasn't. But it's nice to know that if there is ever something that we, the people, can agree on and say, no, we want this or we don't want this, that we have that option. If our elected representatives, go against us, we, the people, can say, no, you listen to us. Because you have to remember, we are their boss. They have to listen to us. They have to answer our questions because we are their boss. Always remember that. Okay, never ever let some representative member, some legislature person tell you stuff make you feel this small. No, you are the boss. You are their boss, and you tell them. You answer my questions. Okay, always remember that. Now, back in the very beginning with the original 13 states, nine of the states had to ratify the Constitution. They had to vote on it saying, yes, it looks good. That's what we want it. The first state to do it was Delaware. They said, yeah, we like it. Uh, we sign it. We agree to it. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, they all jumped on the bandwagon too. So that's like five states right there who said yes. But the thing is, there's some delegates who are like, something's missing in this thing. We can't put our finger on it just yet, but we feel something's missing and we can't sign off on it until we figure that out, you know. So the Constitution, as of now, right at this point in time, was not finished because only 5 states signed off on it, and they needed 4 more. Okay. Let's see what's next. Yes. So we did not do a breakout session in the class. I just basically had you guys answer the question, which is still on your Google form. Who do you think should be more powerful? The federal government, which is again the president, Congress, things like that, or should it be the states? Should the states have more power than the federal government? Okay. Now, again, um, don't just think about our state, think of other states as well, you know, because as you guys know, like in our state, some stuff are legal, whereas in other states, it's illegal. All right. Um, the federal government says, we think this thing, whatever maybe, is illegal, but some states might say, yeah, but in our state, it's legal, you know. And there are some things where the federal government can override states, you know, and the federal government can step in and stop them. So, like stuff that was happening in the South back in the, 1940s and 50s and stuff like that, um, where they were preventing African Americans from voting and having their rights. Uh, the federal government stepped in. Okay, so it's not always bad, even though you might hear some stuff in the news. The federal government has done some good things, but then again, they've done some bad things. Same thing with states, depending on the state. So who do you think should have more power? What do you think? And this is not one of those, they should have both, they should be equal. No, pick one. One of them has to be more powerful than the other. Who are you picking? Federal or state? Okay. So pick one, uh, pause the video, answer, and remember the why. Why is key. Never forget that. That's where most of your points come in, the why. Okay, so go ahead and answer that. We're going to be moving on in 3, 2, 1. So we come to the end. Now, you may have noticed that the exit ticket is actually different from previous lessons and previous classes. Um, because the thing is, a lot of you guys answered your exit ticket very vague. I learned things are fun. Wow. Yeah, I got answers like that. Very just like that has nothing to do with what we talked about. I don't know where you got this from, so had to change my questions. So you get to pick one of these 3 questions. How does a system of checks and balances work? Explain it to me. All right, break it down. Um, why did the framers go with a 2/3 majority over a simple majority? So why did they go with 2/3 where you need, you know, 2/3? Which if some of you guys may not know, 2/3 is more than a half. Okay, half is like half. 2/3 is above. Okay, because during class the responses, some students didn't know that, and it kind of messed up their answer. Okay. Third question, why is it important that the framers left room for interpretation and the ability to add to the Constitution? So why is that important? Why again did they not make it as stone, but rather clay? Why did they leave things loosely interpreted and things like that? So pick one, answer it to the best of your ability, and then submit it. Okay. And once you do that, you are done for this class. Don't forget there are the other assignments on the Google Classroom, so be sure you do those. Okay. Remember, this is the start of a new grading period, and you don't want to fall behind. Okay. So with that being said, you guys take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later.